because this might be the inner chronicle of what we are, and we have to articulate ourselves, otherwise we would be cows in a field.
Welcome to Cows in the Field. This is a podcast about philosophical themes in popular films. My name is Justin.
I'm Laura.
And today we're talking about The Grey, or How I Found the Meaning of Life Fighting Wolves in Alaska. That's the official tagline subtitle of the film, right?
We need a fire, then we find food. If we don't move and work now, we're all freeze to death.
Somebody will find us.
They gotta know that plane went off the radar.
Nobody's gonna find us. Not here. We figure out what way is south and we start walking.
This will be one of those wild stories you tell at a party.
Listen, get up.
Don't move. Stare right back at him.
Today, our guest is Dave Baker. Dave is a philosopher of physics at the University of Michigan. He also writes fiction on the side, especially science fiction short stories, some of which you can find on his website, which we'll link in the show notes. Most importantly, though, for our purposes, is that Dave is a fan of the film The Grey, starring Liam Neeson. So welcome to the show, Dave.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So glad to be here.
What I think is so interesting, I just want to jump right into this movie, because what I think was so interesting, not having seen the movie prior to this, was that it is totally not the movie I was expecting.
I was confused.
And then reading about it online, it seemed like everybody had that experience, or a lot of people had that experience. But it's interesting that I had that experience, 14 years after the movie came out. So somehow it didn't reach me that this is...
Yeah, how did that miss you?
I don't know. I just thought, this is there's like the one where his daughter's lost, and then there's the one where he's a truck driver, a plow driver, and then there's the one where he fights wolves. Right? Those are the
Yeah, I really thought it was gonna be Taken. And it was not.
Dave, to you, I'm curious. So, what interests you about this film, and what's your relationship with it?
I mean, there is some intertextuality with Taken in the sense that, he's a badass in a way that's kind of related, I suppose. Yeah. But it kind of I don't know if this movie would be the way it is if it wasn't for Taken, because this was a few years after Taken, I think. This movie, I did not see it in theaters. I saw it like a year or two after it came out, and I saw it with another good buddy Matt Evans, who you should definitely have on this podcast because he's a very astute student of film. But we watched it in his apartment, and a thing that we kept saying in the movie was we would just be like, fuck, it was like things would happen. We would just not believe what was happening.
Yep.
You kind of have that reaction, but so yeah, I mean, on the level of shock, right? It's a very intense movie, but also I just think it's a super interesting. I mean, I think of it as like an atheist movie, although I don't know whether, Joe Carnahan, the kind of director maker of it, or I guess it was co-written with this guy who had a story that was based off of Ian Mackenzie Jeffers is the guy's name according to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But I don't know if either or both of those guys are atheists, but it's a movie that I think is especially of interest to unbelievers and is kind of it can be seen interestingly through a kind of lens of disbelief in God. I think that's kind of it feels to me like that's the perspective that the movie is inhabiting, and that it's kind of about what should our reaction to life and death and risk and relationships be in the absence of anything beyond ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And I would add to that suffering in particular. One of the responses to suffering that drives at least an interesting argument for the existence of God is Marilyn McCord Adams' argument from Horrific Evil, which is the idea that only through the grace of a supremely good deity can we have any hope in a world full of suffering to continue on? And so, so this speaks, I think, exactly to your thought that this movie is grappling with the absence potentially of such an answer to immense suffering.
Yeah, I mean, hope is an interesting word when it comes to this movie. I think that the characters kind of wrestle with that very much. And, Liam Neeson's character, Otway, he seems to kind of be of two minds about it, right? I mean, early in the movie, he comes very close to killing himself, just fairly abruptly, but then he doesn't. And then later in the movie, he has some kind of. I remember a line that sticks with me is when he talks about how he kind of tells the characters to think about their memories of their families and their people, and that's something that will make you crave the next moment or something like that more than the last moment. So there's a kind of there's a theory there maybe about what could give us hope in a godless world or something. But
I think this is a great angle to think through the film. I'm just going to briefly give a synopsis of the structure of the film, and then we can jump into specifically about the idea of sort of hope and potentially, even more broadly, like, finding meaning in a life that is in which, in a world where meaning isn't built into the fabric of the world, because as it is in the religious context where, you might think you have, I mean, this is actually questionable, what I'm about to say. It's not like a priori that if God exists, life has meaning, but whatever. For a lot of people, the world full of a deity or whatever, there's somehow ordained purpose. And anyway, in a world without that, it's lacking. We can come to that in a moment, but I'll just mention that, just to hit on one thing you mentioned already, which is that, so Liam Neeson playing this character Otway, he's a wolf hunter, I guess. But he works for an Alaskan oil company. He describes himself as a salaried killer for a big petroleum company, which is a really interesting line. This is like one of the first lines of the film. Like, you might think that everyone working at a big petroleum company is a salaried killer. But I think it's really interesting. It's like, he's not the guy working at the company. He's just the dude who kills the wolves before they come and kill the people who work at the company.
Yeah. And he's sort of like almost like a folklore character to the dudes who do work on the drills. They're like, that's the guy with the gun. Like, as you see when he sits down at the plane, they're like, what do you do? Like, kill Kodiaks? Like,
he's some weird outsider. Even among a band of misfit outsiders, he's the outsider to them.
Yep.
So the first thing we see with him basically is he walks outside of this bar and seemingly is going to commit suicide. He puts the gun in his mouth. It's interesting that it's the howl of a wolf, which seems to shake him from it. But anyway, we'll come to this. And anyway, then he decides to not kill himself. He goes, we're seeing in flashbacks that he's writing a note to his estranged wife. So presumably that has something to do with this. Anyway, he's getting on the plane. It's the last day. They're heading back to civilization, and their plane crashes, and it's absolutely harrowing. And then the rest of the film is him and about 7 survivors trying to survive against both the elements and a pack of wolves, which are constantly threatening to eat them and kill them. And in the context of the film, they're all trying to come to terms with why. I mean, they want to survive, but they're trying to ask the question, like, why? Why do I want to do this thing, which somehow is like absolutely natural? Okay, so I'm going to go personal here, and you can deflect if you want, but like, are you a believer or a non-believer? And how does that affect how you watch a film like this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm less of a confident non-believer than I was when I first saw the movie. But I think like I maybe have like, I don't know, we would say in philosophy like a 20% credence. Yeah. Okay. I think there's a chance that there's a God. Like it's not a tiny chance, but I don't think it's one of the ones that any of the scriptures that humans have written about. But like,
Mm.
but yeah, I think most likely there's not. And I kind of approach my life through the lens of somebody who doesn't believe in God. So like from the way that I kind of, I mean, you know, like what's most important is, I think, yeah, I kind of move through life on the assumption that there's no God.
Yeah,
Mhm.
got it.
Even if I think there's some possibility that there is.
Yeah. I think you're
Yeah.
probably in that spot, Laura.
Yeah.
I'm pretty staunch non-believer, but then again, I haven't been immersed in the fine-tuning literature, which seems to be the thing that convinces a lot of people these days.
That is in fact the reason why I have a little bit
Yeah.
of a non-zero.
Yeah, I'm worried about getting into that too deep, because then I'm going to shake my very strong anti-God confidence.
I know you're gonna have to give up your
Then suddenly I'm like,
presidency
we
of
got
the
to go
Satanist club.
we got to go to church, Laura. I was convinced by fine-tuning.
I don't know what fine tuning is. It sounds like something that Scientology would do.
No, it's like you got those tuning forks, you
Okay.
know, and they're really, really brittle. Dave, so I'm curious just how it's affecting your relationship to the film itself.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I think especially like Otway's Liam Neeson's perspective on God in the film is very close to one that I definitely had at the time, and that
Mhm.
still is pretty, you know,
Yeah, what does
just
he
kind
say?
of like
He says,
he says like, I can't believe that bullshit. I wish I could, but nothing I've seen, you know, is indicates that there's anything beyond the material stuff and that kind of thing, right?
yeah, he says this. He sort of takes this pragmatic outlook. Like there's a scene where the one of the characters. Oh my God, which one is it? It's
I don't.
Okay, let me name some actors here and the characters. There's Dermot Mulroney. I think it's him playing Talgett. Frank Grillo playing Diaz. Talgett's the guy with glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Talgett is the one who I remember who does say something.
He says something more religious, exactly, and that's the one that Liam Neeson, and he's going up against Diaz, played by Frank Grillo, who's kind of this hothead guy. He says like, I have no fear, and he gets in a fight with Otway. But
amazing character.
Oh,
yes,
I mean, Grillo is awesome. I love Grillo.
Yeah.
But those two guys are kind of going at it, and Liam Neeson, Otway, he intervenes a little bit, and he says,
I really wish I could believe in that stuff. This is real. The cold. That's real. The air in my lungs. Those bastards out there in the dark, stalking us. It's this world that I'm worried about, Talgett. Not the next.
So you were talking about your relationship to sort of faith and the film, and you mentioned that Otto, I want to call him Otway, he kind of embodies the outlook that, at least in 2013, was closest to your perspective on things.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, a thing that I don't have, and that the movie, in a way, there's something kind of aspirational about the movie for me, which is a thing that I don't have is his kind of courage and pragmatism, I guess, in facing death, because, you know, existential fear of death is something that I have wrestled with at different times in my life, different ways, and it's never been easy. And you know, that's one of the things. One thing that's amazing about this movie to me is that it's a really powerful exploration of some things that I have very strong fears of.
Okay,
and you know, the certainly there's a lot of stuff in the movie about accepting death, and at the same time kind of resisting or struggling against death. And there, like I said, there's something kind of aspirational to me about, on the one hand, Otway has kind of the outlook that this life is all we have, and so he is going to struggle, and he is going to try to win out with his will over the forces that are trying to end his life. And at the same time, he is approaching death with an attitude of, it seems like, really radical acceptance in a way. And he kind of helps a couple of different characters to accept death in different ways.
That's really interesting. So let's start there. I do want to unpack Otway's character because it's a really complicated character, but I want to start with death. Actually, this film's really, I mean, it's clearly I don't know how to think of this, but there's something very clear about the structure of the film where it's engaged with the our relationship to death. So the film begins, as we mentioned, with a suicidal Otway. The next thing that happens is he's forced to fight for his life. A guy who the night before was going to commit suicide is now in the exact opposite position where he has to fight to not die, and he does. And then, we're obviously spoiling the movie. He fights his way all the way into the very place he was trying to escape from, namely the wolf den. And so everything that he does to try to survive, to fight against death proves to be futile. And actually, not only that, it hastens his death in some ways. So, I mean, already you're like, whoa, there's a lot there. Because there's a sense in which the character gets exactly what he wants. He effectively commits suicide over the course of the film through his actions. What does that say about our relationship to death and how, each of the characters has to, on their own, come to terms with dying, and they do to varying degrees and in varying ways. And then the last thing you said that maybe this is where we should start. He is the one who he's like a priest giving final rites at various points in this film. Like, he guides that Lewandin character through dying, and that to me is one of the most sort of intense scenes of the film. It comes right on the heels of an incredibly intense plane crash. And then you get a scene which is like the inverse of how it's so intense but so intimate. And it's these two guys, and Otway is saying,
It's all right. It's all right. Look at me. Keep looking at me. It's all right. It'll slide over you. It'll start to feel warm. Nice and warm. Let it move over you. It's all right.
He seems to know what death is like, which I also find so interesting. Maybe again because he's been killing wolves for a while,
Also,
or because
right. We're gonna
say it.
Make the reveal. His wife is actually dead, not
his
estranged.
wife has died. So
I imagine he's had some counseling on death and what it's like to experience it.
I feel like he's getting his counseling right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a go to a counselor kind of character.
No,
right?
but
he's a hangout in a oil rig, bar kind of character. And get my counseling.
He does counseling over darts at the bar, and he says, "Look, it'll slide over you. It'll feel warm, nice and warm." And he says, and he does this to each of the guys. He encourages them to go to or think about their loved ones, the person that they love most. And he says, and so this guy tells him that his daughter is his North Star, and he says, okay, think about your daughter. So what I liked about what you said, and I also struggle with this, is like the movie sort of depicts the struggle, but also in a way the success of coming to terms with death and how it can be done.
I think it's a kind of duality in the movie, and it's one of the things that it's a place where I don't think that the movie has kind of a settled answer in a way to it's one of these things where it's kind of there's the old saw, right, that like wisdom involves kind of embracing contradictions or something like that, or holding contrary things in your head at once. And there's something kind of stupid about that old saw, but there's also something that is kind of wise about it in a way. And I think that the movie really takes a perspective like that.
That's interesting.
On death and the struggle to live, right? And it's kind of, it seems like on the one hand, the wisdom is the mortal life is all we have, and you better fight for what you can get from that. And on the other hand, don't hold on too tight, and don't, like you say, right? Like let it come over you when it's your time, something like that. So and those aren't really inconsistent attitudes exactly, but I feel like those are,
Yeah.
but there's a tension
They're
there.
totally.
Mhm.
The movie is exploring that area of tension.
I love
think.
that. Yeah. These are
Yeah.
guys fighting to survive, but at the same time, what they really need to do is just accept they're gonna die. And there is this
When it's their time, right? But like,
Sure.
it's like the scene with Llewellyn is a really pure portrayal of that because he's just bleeding out. There's
Yeah.
nothing to be done for him at that point, and Otway just sees him and recognizes that immediately and gives it to him straight, and kind of, yeah, he lets him know this is the moment to be accepting. This is the moment for acceptance, because the moment to fight is over, kind of. So it's like, so in a way, the movie is about how do you time that? Like, how do you kind of like find the time to accept that you're going to die versus the time, which is the majority of your life, when you shouldn't accept that, but you should be kind of that's how I see it, right? It's like that's my, I mean, that scene is just, I mean, it's like it really is, it's an incredible part of the movie. It's really one of the Neeson does really well in that scene. He's very soft and gentle while also being kind of, he's always very tough. He's always very strong in this movie. There's not a moment where that lapses for him. But he's just so humanistic. It really feels like a blessing.
Yes.
That the guy had him there.
Yeah. It's like he's the steady hand that you want in that moment of utter fear and confusion, because the character is confused. He doesn't know what's happening. He's worried something's wrong, and it's just like almost a reassurance. Like, it's okay, you're dying.
There's a kind of ideal father thing almost to his character in a lot of ways in a lot of those scenes. I mean another thing that we should talk about, I don't know if we want to talk about right now, but like put a pin in it. The portrayal of women in this movie, very brief, but I think very interesting.
What are there, two female characters?
Yeah, well, and yeah, I mean, unless you count the stewardess.
The stewardess. Yeah, there's the bartender, the stewardess, and the dead wife.
And dead wife.
Yeah. Well, and there's the daughter. There's
yes,
we do see
an image.
Dermot Mulroney's daughter.
Yeah.
But putting her hair.
But
in
yeah,
his face.
it's like, yeah, women are these. They're kind of a big function that they have is to like lead you into death and to help you into this acceptance. So there's this kind of like, there's such a powerful kind of like angelic quality to that small handful of women that we see like portrayed on scene in this movie, which I think is very interesting.
I would like to talk about that. I also want to talk about, maybe just to build on what you were thinking about, like accepting it when it's your time. And then I think what's interesting is that the film isn't just dudes surviving the whole time. Like, it could be. But if you think of the surviving aspect as just the resisting the inevitable, which is death, there's also more to life than that, just resisting. There's also forging human connections, laughter, some kind of enjoyment. There's in this film, there's aesthetic enjoyment and gustatory enjoyment. I mean, they eat the wolf, and they share a bond, these men, and that's forged throughout the film. They have these philosophical conversations about death and about what gives their lives meaning and how to help one another. There's the shepherding role that Otway plays. And I think that dimension of it is not something I expected in some ways for this. I was really thinking this was just going to be a movie where the plane crashes and now it's time for Liam Neeson to MacGyver his way out of a bunch of wolf attacks. And there is some of that, but you also get these long stretches of just the guys hanging out. And I think it's really important because I think the film is trying to also say that in the moments when it's not your time, you don't have to only be struggling against death. You can be even at the precipice of death. You can there's a chance to live, and I think that's, I don't know. I find that reassuring.
I think that's right. I mean, the other thing that they have along the lines you're saying is nature and kind of natural beauty, which
That's
is a
right.
big part of the
Yes.
movie. There's a kind of like powerful, you know, and I mean, yeah, this shows up in one of the other most powerful scenes, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about, but like the first name scene. But yeah, you know, the kind of the appreciation of the natural world is another thing that it's interesting the way that the movie gets us to do that in the kind of slowed down moments, even while nature is in a lot of ways like the enemy.
Yeah. I mean, the parallels between, so the primary antagonist in the film are these wolves. And the film situates the men and the wolves in a very clear parallel. So the wolves are a pack of hunters that have a pecking order that has to be maintained. The men are a pack of, in a way, survivors who have a pecking order that has to continually be maintained. Where Otway starts sort of at the top, but his dominion is challenged by Diaz, who disagrees with his various things that he chooses to guide the group towards, and his values. And I think there is this thought that these guys are just, how far away are they from these animals? In some sense, they're just like reduced to animals in a way, and in a certain respect, the animals have the upper hand, of course, throughout, because they're beholden, they're true denizens of nature, whereas the men have, in certain sense, gone soft by civilization. They can't just survive in the wilderness. And I do think that dimension of the film is one that the film, and it's also, I guess, related to the fact that there's mostly dudes in the film. That is a thing that, like, when you look online about the people who've written about this film and seem to, really get into it, it's a lot of guys for the most part. And I think, guys fighting against nature to survive is a very masculine coded thing. And so I think it makes sense. I hadn't thought of the women playing this more angelic or shepherding role, like they're shepherding them into the afterlife. I love that idea. But I think the flip side of that idea is that the women are, because they're playing that role, they are effectively exempted from this struggle. Like the struggle is portrayed as a masculine one. Of course, we all know women die too, but that's not part of this movie.
But women don't die fighting wolves with tiny bottles of alcohol behind their
hand. Well, the women, instead, the
women
women get to play the role of, a kind of pure role of being the guides to the afterlife, so to speak, or really into death. Anyway, let's just talk about that right now, Dave, because you kicked that off, and I thought that was really interesting, and I just kind of want to hear more about your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think it is interesting. I mean, I guess like this is not something that I have like a dissertation about or anything, but my sense of it is that the movie, the film just is kind of like, it really is a work of art for the reasons you were just talking about, that is kind of from a male perspective. And I think that the women are portrayed in the way that men, I mean, one doesn't want to generalize, right? Like, I'll just say it felt very true to the way that I perceive and think in my sentimental moments about the women and girls that I love. There was something kind of, there's like kind of like, not in the times that I'm like interacting with them, but there's just these moments when, like, when if I'm like driving my car and a sentimental song comes on and I kind of start thinking about my girlfriend, just there's this really kind of pure idealization of her that happens at those kind of times. And it feels like that to me. It feels like those kind of moments are what they were shooting for, those moments of like, like holding somebody up as a kind of, I mean, not an ideal in the sense of like an ideal to live up to, but an ideal in the sense of like, just something to marvel at.
Yeah, well, something to fight for. I mean, it's totally right that in the movie, the men only can conceive of, in some ways, or at least they all say, women as the thing that drive. So it's like a daughters, wives, dead wives,
Dead wives.
Uh,
the possibility of having sex with women again.
exactly. Diaz is
So Diaz is the exception in a way, right?
Because
he has a very
he doesn't
non-idealized picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have a person that he's fighting, a particular.
He just.
But so I think of Diaz as the like he's the censorist. Or what's the word? Hold on, I wrote it down. What is Diaz?
Hedonist.
He's sort of a hedonist. Yeah. Well, he's he's interested in the earthly pleasures, worldly pleasures, sex,
people's wallets.
Yeah, money. But also, I think, and then the most I don't know, idealized version of that is depreciation of nature. And it's so crucial that he then dies staring and even says, like, I'm fine to die here because I got this all to myself, looking at this beautiful vista that he's staring out at. And so I don't think the movie is necessarily critical of Diaz in this regard. It's just that it's interesting that even him, the man who doesn't have a woman in his life, goes to sort of femininity as what motivates him.
Do you think he's the same guy at the end of his story as he is at the start, though? Because I kind of feel like, I don't know, you get the feeling like of the characters, he's supposed to be the one who has kind of changed the most.
I totally agree. No, I my read on him is that he, in a way, he begins. If you think of the movie as depicting various stages of grief, he's the one who most strongly is in denial at the beginning, and then most emphatically is in acceptance at the end, or at his end. And the reason I think he's the one who's most strongly in denial is he lies because he's clearly afraid. He lies about being afraid over and over as a sort of puffery to gain some sort of credence, not credence, but to gain authority amongst these men. He says, I'm not afraid, this and that. And Otway has to kind of cut him down to size, beat him in the fight. And then in that moment of weakness, he's attacked by the wolf. After I think Otway's given him his knife back at that point, or anyway, but he's attacked by the wolf and they have to fight off the wolf. And he is clearly afraid. He's afraid of dying. He has not accepted it. But then when he can no longer continue, because this is after he's fallen and broken his leg and he's completely out of energy, he can't move. But he seems to be content with his decision to just sit on that log. And actually, to me, that was his arc in the film, and the fact that he does that was the heart of the film for me. I know it's Otway's journey in a way, but Diaz, he comes in and he's such an asshole and you hate him so much and you think, gosh, just stop doing this. You're messing everything up. But then he goes from that to kind of this saint-like character who has wisdom in a way and is able to see things for as they are and knows it is his time.
What I got waiting for me back there? I'm gonna sit on the drill all day, get drunk all night. That's my life. Turn around and look at that. I feel like that's all for me.
In a way, his arc happens very quickly, right? Because there's the scene around the fire when he's fighting with Otway, and by the end of the scene, he has accepted Otway as his better, right? Basically, like he's like, I think what he says is like, "That was bullshit. I'm sorry." And then the wolf attacks him, but like it feels like there's a bunch of things going on with him, and one of them is that one of them is this kind of parallel with the wolves, right? Because the wolf that attacks him is the outcast wolf, right? So that's kind of like the analogy to him in a way. And it feels like in a way what he needed was to submit to Otway and kind of like let Otway take the lead for him and be guided by him. And then that's kind of what was the key to his like salvation or something.
That's really interesting because he himself. So you could think then of him as this. He's a self-determinist. He thinks I make my own fate. He rejects Talget's notion of faith and the Almighty and God and anything bigger than him or his immediate surroundings. But you're right that his salvation comes at the hands of Otway, who you can think of, he's already basically done this in this kind of spiritual guidance role. He has to humble him and then show mercy and give him the knife back and so on. And I think that is really interesting. So him, by submitting to this sort of higher power, so to speak, he is saved. That's that sentence what I just said right there sounds very Christian to me. Even though he doesn't there's no like moment where he like says, "Oh my God, I believe in God" or something. He never changes his faith beliefs. He remains, I think, a naturalist to the end. But you're right that he has, in order to come to those terms, he has to be guided by the shepherd. That is Otway.
Yeah. There's something what you say about it. It's kind of like if you are, if you're a certain kind of like non-believer, you need like a surrogate for religion in your life, right? And I think in a way this is kind of connected with the thing we were just talking about love, romance, and the brief portrayals of the women, because it's like a thing that can provide a surrogate is romance or love or something like that, right? It's like things that you can base your life around.
Yeah, something bigger than you or just different from you that you can.
Yeah, I think like he's so self-involved in the beginning, and like it's just like looking out for himself and his pleasures and his gain, and he has to submit to, if not like a shepherd but like he has to be a part of the group and understand that like he relies on other people and other people rely on him.
Right, and he does, because it's important to note that he breaks his leg and ultimately seals his fate by trying to help Talget. who's just fallen from the branches, and it's him. He's like trying to get down there because Talget's being attacked by wolves, and that's when he trips he's descending the tree.
Down the tree. Yeah.
So it's interesting that he really does become a member of the group in the sense that he feels special obligations to these men who he's only known for 24 hours or whatever. So I think it's interesting. You could think of the film as illustrating these sort of different ways of finding meaning or purpose in your life, or at least something to fight for. And we get Talget's articulation of a kind of fate. There's like I have a destiny. This is Lieutenant Dan. I have to always bring it back to Forrest Gump.
Oh, you're a big Lieutenant Dan fan?
Oh yeah. No, not his philosophy, but his. I mean. We like in
the character.
The character. Yeah. When you get deep into listening to Cows in the Field, if that ever happens, Dave, we do an episode on Forrest Gump where we talk about Lieutenant Danning. It's a thing that we do in the house it's like
if you just stare
into space. There's like that scene in
the New Year's
scene when there's all the confetti falling on him and he's just staring into the distance.
Well, everybody sings Old Lang Syne.
There was a couple days ago, Laura was Lieutenant Danning. She was just staring off into space. Anyway, sorry.
No, so my brother and I have a movie related name for the same phenomenon, which is, in Ghostbusters, Venkman says to Janine, right, that when she like stares too much, she gets the bug eyes.
Oh, so took me those bug eyes.
He says it in kind of
yeah. Took me those bug eyes. Yeah. He says, Janine, sorry about the bug eyes thing.
Sorry about the bug eyes thing.
Sorry about the bug eyes thing.
Yep, classic lines.
I do. Anyway, sorry, I got to bring this back. We're gonna bring this back around. So we have faith. It's kind of faith in a predestination, like that I mean, again, I always find this sort of mysterious how this is helpful, but I guess the idea that you're sort of just acting out a role in somebody else's play. In some sense, you can exempt yourself from responsibility, I guess, and that may be reassuring in some ways. So that's what Talget says. He says, "Look, why we should have died. We landed in this, this plane just crashed. There's got to be something meaningful about the fact that we were spared." To which, the film seems to answer not really.
Not really.
Although maybe
Yeah.
their journey. It's if there is something meaningful, it's got to be their journey. The journey they go on, the bonds they forge, because that's it. They don't live much longer. Anyway, that's one. You got Diaz, who's the pure sensorist, or somebody who's sensibilist. He wants just to get more sensory pleasure. Like that's what matters to him. But then you have Otway. Now, I think he's in many respects a very complicated character. And in this way, I don't totally understand it. Maybe, Dave, you can help us. So Otway, we learn, again, throughout the film, you think he's trying to get back to his wife. But then you learn at the end through one of the flashbacks that she's already died of cancer or whatever. I will just note that makes this film in a way, by a 2-second shot of this woman dying, a extremely poignant thing for Liam Neeson to be doing 2 years after his wife died in a ski accident, Natasha Richardson. So it just adds these layers of metatextual layers here. But he then, so now you think, oh, he wasn't fighting to get back to his wife the whole time because she's dead. So what was he fighting for? And the most we get, I think, is his recitation of his father's poem.
Once more into the fray. Into the last good fight I'll ever know. Live and die on this day. Live and die on this day.
So he says this poem and he recites it at various points in the film. He even tells the story about how it was written on his father's den wall, and he has all these memories of his father, that some of which seem tender, but also many of which seem, the way he describes it, as not tender. His father seemed to be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But we don't get much more than that. And I'm kind of curious. I just don't totally know how to make what he's fighting for. He does go on this journey, and he seems to be in some ways changed by the end of the journey, but I'm not totally sure how to think of it. Dave, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, the poem has to be key. I mean, it's very emphasized. What did you two think of the poem?
What did you think of the poem, Laura? Just to start there.
You're gonna put me on the spot.
I mean, I think, there's people have commented that it's this thing from Henry V, or it's very similar to that. But it also feels like and it feels like the Dylan thing. What is it? Or is it Dylan? Who is it? The once more into the good night.
Oh yeah, right.
Once more into
Dylan Thomas poem. Yeah, right. Don't go gentle into
the night. Yeah, the Interstellar
poem.
So it feels like it's very much of a piece with, other poetry about confronting potentially harmful situations that may result in your death. These kind of reassurances given to soldiers, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I think I read some criticism of it online, which was like, oh, this is so derivative. But I'm like, yeah, the poem is in fiction. The poem was written by a drunk Irish guy.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Let's not worry too much how original this is.
No, that's a thing that I think works well, which is that the poem is it's not too good and it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like in the zone where it doesn't seem laughable for a character to be as fixated on it as Otway is, but it's also in the zone where you believe that his random, probably not that well-educated dad, although I guess he says that his dad was into poetry as a thing, so maybe. Yeah. But anyway,
he's not he's not like an amazing poet. Just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's believable that a regular guy wrote this, and also that it means something to his son, right? Yeah. So that's another place where I feel like things come together really well.
I mean, here's one other dimension, just to throw this out there before. I mean, we got to unpack this character.
Okay.
At one point in the film, at the very end, right before he enters the wolf den, he does cry out seemingly to God. He cries out to some sort of higher power, and when he gets no response, he says something to the effect of, "Fuck it, I'll do it myself." right?
I think he says exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that I think is also important. There's this death rattle in a way of whatever tiny amount of religious belief he had that comes out as a final appeal.
Yeah. He's
And
like,
then-
I'll just try this.
Yeah.
Is this
And then
gonna
when
work?
it's
No?
unanswered, he
Okay.
just goes back to his kind of, I'm all right, I'm a pragmatist. I could just, tape bottles to my hands.
Yeah. He's
Laura's
gotta
favorite.
And that was
I got the little nips. Yeah.
Well, they've been
I mean, that-
drinking them the whole movie.
I know. Your
Yeah.
teeny tiny $20 vodka bottles from the plane.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. They're plain bottles.
Mhm.
I mean, that's one of the things that was one of the most suspenseful scenes in the movie. Actually, was when he's waiting for kind of like God's response, and I remember feeling suspense in that moment because I was like, what I was saying actually to myself was like, please don't go there, right?
Yes.
Don't cheapen the rest of this movie
Oh, okay.
by making it so that God intervenes
Yes.
on his behalf.
Did you think like Monty Python style, it might like just like a cartoon would like
No,
open up the sky?
No. I know exactly what you're thinking, Dave. Like what
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
want is like then the plane comes and picks
Exactly,
him up.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Have the courage of your convictions. Then
Exactly.
the movie has the courage of its
Yes.
convictions to like the nth degree.
To the point where we don't see his final,
We don't see the
we don't see the
battle.
final battle, and we also don't see the
But like
outcome
he's
of-
not gonna live.
No, I think you can infer that he's not going to beat a wolf in hand-to-hand combat.
There's actually a post-credits scene that I meant to ask you if you had seen it.
I heard it described, which was described to me as you see sort of the wolf in a kind of lying on the ground, breathing, and you see Otway kind of almost on the wolf's body, lying on it, breathing. Is that right? They're both sort of breathing, or maybe not breathing. It's unclear, but they're in a kind of embrace almost. Is that?
Yeah, it seems like he won.
Okay.
But it also doesn't necessarily seem like he's going to survive.
Right.
I guess is kind of the
Right.
vibe.
There's
He
also
won the
like
battle, not the
way
war.
more of them than
Yes,
like
he's
he
in the
killed
wolf den.
one.
Yeah, that's true.
He's
Also,
next
yeah,
to a
there's the other
giant
wolf.
rib cage. He's like, whoops. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but that it's relevant that the film doesn't provide us any catharsis in this regard
Mm-mm.
of
No.
seeing the battle. Which, look, I think that's the right choice because again, if it depicts him fighting a wolf and won, so either we'll do this disjunction elimination. Either he wins the battle or he loses. If he wins the battle against the wolf, you're just thinking, wait, this movie was like hyper realistic all the time, and now suddenly this guy.
He's like a superhero.
Yeah, just like, how is that going to look? It's going to look like Yoda when he busts out his lightsaber. You're
Yeah.
like, there's something wrong about this. I like it, but there's something wrong about it for this film. Then if he dies, well, it's like you just watch a dude just get ripped apart by a wolf. It's like, I mean,
this movie's kind of just watching a bunch of guys get ripped apart,
Not-
like piece
but
by
the movie,
piece.
the movie. I think that's the thing is what the movie. When you describe it to someone, that's what you might say. But then when you watch the film, there's very little of dudes getting ripped apart by wolves. It's all either off camera.
No, I meant more
or-
metaphorically, but like,
But no, this if you showed it, then he would just be like, he'd be like getting a punch in, and the wolf gets a claw. He could. Great choice. Don't show it.
don't show it.
but
Don't show
anyway,
it with the
yeah.
CGI wolves.
But what drives Otway? This is the thing. I don't know. I feel like if we can unpack this, we could break the two. It's like either you have religion or you are just this existentialist. Otway seems to be like a third way. What's the third way?
Well, so early in the movie when he wants to die, as you observed, right, he hears the wolf cry.
Yeah.
And that kind of like brings him back. I mean, one way you could read that is that he feels responsibility to do his job in some way, I
Oh, interesting.
suppose.
Hmm.
I mean, another thing, so that scene is cut back and forth between scenes of his getting close to the suicide thing and scenes of him from, I guess, like the previous day or maybe the next day
Mhm.
where he kills a wolf.
Yeah.
And saves some guys. And at the end of that, the piece that's intercut with him deciding not to die, he's kind of like petting the wolf as it dies, basically,
Mhm.
right? That was a part of the movie that was more powerful for me this time because we're dog owners now, and
Mm.
I didn't have a dog at the time, and I wasn't like a dog person. I hadn't been converted to being a dog person, so it was like it felt more powerful. But I think that it feels like there's a kind of like relationship he has to the wolves that matters to him
Yeah.
in a way, or like
Yeah, he seems to really respect them.
yeah, like there's a kind of like there's some kind of love for them
Yeah.
that it feels like he has.
The other thing you said that I really like, because I think this would be a genuine third option, is he has an obligation to fulfill his duty. So it's like his duty, and in particular, his duty to his fellow man, these guys
Yeah.
in particular, because he's supposed to protect them. That's his job, is to protect them from wolves. So he's got to see that through. But once they're all gone, his job has been effectively discharged. I mean, he couldn't succeed in his mission, but he did his best, and that's it. So
Yeah.
he can end a life fulfilled because he did what his duty was.
But that kind of speaks against that reading, because then he does continue to struggle and he fights the
He does
alpha
fight.
wolf.
He does fight the alpha.
So it's like
yeah.
it's like would he fight the alpha wolf if it was just about his responsibility to the other
That's
humans?
true. That's true. Although, yeah, that's right. But here's one other thing he does that I forgot to mention that we should have in here, which is he sets up he looks in each guy's wallet. They've been collecting the wallets as they've gone.
Yeah.
And he looks and he sees, their family they've been talking about and so on. And he sort of like creates like a funeral pyre or something of them. He just like stacks them up. And you might think that maybe this is going too much out on a limb, but what he's fighting for is that like he wants to protect in a way like their memory, and he's so he's like fighting for them in some ways still, or he's fighting for like the representation of them that he has created on the
Yeah.
ground right in front of in this wolf den.
Another possibility, right, is that he kind of has seen the light in a certain way by the connection that he forms with the other guys in the group of survivors. Like maybe he felt like with his wife dead, he didn't have meaningful connections again. And now he formed more meaningful connections. And of course, those are gone because those guys are dead very quickly. But at the same time, maybe there's this kind of reawakening in him. And he's feeling like, I have the ability to make meaningful connections with other humans again. I thought that was gone. So maybe that's a kind of thing to live for.
Here's another way of thinking about it that's a little bit left field, but I think not totally insane, which is that you might think that the reason we are presented with the images of his wife that we are is because those are the images in his mind. So if that's right, then the images that we initially see are all of her alive, seemingly them being together and so on. And then it's only in that final image, right before that final wolf battle, that we see her hooked up to the IV and dying. And you might think, this was a man who part of his arc was going through a kind of denial and acceptance. But the grief was not the confrontation with death in this case, but the confrontation with his wife's death. That he was in a way in denial of her death. I mean, he's written her a note for, so he's written a note to a person who's dead. But then, and he seems to really care about preserving this note at various points in the film. After the crash, he checks to make sure he still has the note. It's one of the last things he looks at before he fights the wolf. But in that moment, we see a kind of acceptance, because maybe that's the first time he's accepted that she has died. Now, I don't know how this explains why he then decides to fight the wolf, but maybe the explanation is as simple as he's got all these nips. He's like, let's go. I got the ultimate weapon. But I think really and again, it's not clear what the impetus for his acceptance of this is, but you might think that that's a visual representation of somebody going through a kind of denial into acceptance.
That seems super correct about him. I'm not sure what part it is of the explanation for him struggling, but I think it is like a big insight into him. And I think that really fits. I never thought about this before, but that really fits with the fact that the movie tricks you into thinking that she's still alive for so long. maybe he's kind of like in denial about that himself. So he's tricking himself in a way into pretending that she's still alive.
Here's another thing I want to throw at you, which is that I think was kind of this is again about Otway. It was revealed to me when I was playing through IMDb trivia. Just we do this sometimes to prepare for this podcast. Most of it is nonsense. I find this one kind of funny. I'm inclined to think it's true, but either way, I think you can see what I'm about to say in the context of the film, regardless of whether this is right. But apparently, according to IMDb trivia, I'm just going to read this verbatim because I find it hilarious. Wilderness experts, hiking specialists, and adventure enthusiasts / backwoods naturalists, and especially emergency responding personnel, would completely disagree with all of the characters' decisions to leave the vicinity of the plane wreckage, which stood out starkly and very well against the bleak, wide open, white, snowy expanse, and head distantly over to the stand of trees or forest and beyond, where it is very difficult to see survivors from the air. The far better, more intelligent survival choice would have been to board up the fuselage tube like a room and reinforce it with parts to create a safe chamber in which to pass the nights. The survivors should have only left the wrecked fuselage area if food or flammable material had run out, and even then, rescuers would look and start at the last known location. Okay, so I don't know if this is true, but what I think
seems very plausible.
Yeah, it seems plausible. What I think is interesting, though, is that when you think about Otway's character and the decisions he makes, almost every decision he makes leads to
Somebody
a very
dying.
bad outcome.
Yeah.
So I'll give you some examples. He sets up a watch. This first one is somewhat excusable, but I just pointed out. He sets up a watch system. Everyone's got to take turns on watch. That's when Hernandez dies. And particularly dies because he's on watch. Well, he's going to go take a pee and he's vulnerable in that moment, which is nobody's sort of watching him. He says, we got to run for the trees. According to the guy on IMDb trivia, that was the wrong move.
Why does he say they should go to the trees? Because he's like, we're being hunted.
We're being hunted. We have a better shot in going to the trees. He just says it's like on a hunch, basically. But not only do of course the trees we all know turn out badly, but not only that, it immediately results in Flannery, that character of Flannery, getting eaten by wolves because he just trips and he gets eaten.
There's no way I can do that. No, we can't go back. There's no way we can go back. Those trees, though. What trees? Right out there. Got a tether of some kind? Secure it between here and there? We can climb down. Guys, it's simple. It's the wolves of those trees.
That we should cross the ravine, where initially I was like, that seems good. The wolves are up here. They're not down there on the other side of the ravine. But it turns out that leads to Hernandez dying. It also leads to Diaz's injury. It's also an insane thing that they do where they throw the thing over. That's crazy.
It's crazy that succeeds as well as it does.
Yeah, he just jumps across basically. Anyway, and then of course this culminates with Otway. In fact, the whole time he was leading them right into the alpha den wolf. So there's this sense in which Otway comes across as a extremely confident, manly, knows what he's doing kind of guy who can reassure you and so on. But you can also think of the character in what actually happens as someone who's just totally lost. He's as lost as any of these other guys, and he's just making bad decision after bad decision. And the difference is that this guy's probably going to die no matter what. The difference is, though, that he, by exuding confidence and showing, and being a good leader, so to speak, he makes these guys' lives, their last 24 hours, a little bit better. He provides some reassurance to them that things might be okay, even though he has no idea whether they're going to be okay.
So another thing that's kind of connected to what you're saying is the movie's portrayal of like the wolf behavior, right? Which is super scientifically inaccurate. Yeah. Wolves are nowhere near as aggressive as they are in the movie. But like, I think these are just aspects in which I'm not going to say like the right way to enjoy the movie, but I think the more meaningful way to experience the film is that the point is to have a kind of felt verisimilitude rather than like actual realism.
Yeah.
And that you're just supposed to like, you're supposed to accept that, right? Like it's like the best engagement with it is on its own terms.
Yeah.
And I think that involves some kind of acceptance of some things that aren't especially realistic about it, including the thing to do is to kind of go on this journey, right? Because like
it's a metaphorical journey as much as it's
if they weren't
realistic
walking,
story.
it would really remove a lot of the interest from the movie.
Yeah, I like that response. Hey, IMDb guy, let's play out your movie. So they just sit
in the
there
fuselage and wait,
and then they get rescued 5 days later. That's fucking boring.
Yeah.
But it would be that's what the real emergency people would want to do.
Relatedly, Dave, I want to ask you this. So there is this criticism of the film, which at the time, which was present at the time. I read a bunch of reviews, and they're largely split along the lines of people who thought, the film was deep and interesting. A.O. Scott among them from New York Times, and who else was in that? A recent article written by Luke Buckmaster in The Guardian, which I'll quote from in a second. But then there was this group of critics who thought, wait, this isn't Taken with wolves? What the fuck? Like, I'm bored by this movie. I thought it was going to be Liam Neeson fights a wolf. And I said I got a bunch of dudes sitting around a campfire waxing philosophical. So, I mean, what do you think of that criticism? And, I feel like it's related to what you were saying earlier about sort of not watching the film on its own terms.
I can't imagine there are people who are bored about this movie, even as a pure suspense and action movie. I mean, it's like the scenes of that sort are so, I don't know, like, yeah, I mean, there are many reactions one can have, I guess. I think there was a problem. If I recall, I didn't kind of look back at this, but maybe the movie was kind of marketed to people as something that was, this is going to be Taken-esque, and it's, then people were like, what's up with this spiritual movie?
Slow, yeah.
There's very little wolf fighting. I mean, there's a lot of wolf.
There's a lot of being eaten by wolves.
Yeah, there's a lot of
victimization.
Yeah, killing people, but it's quick. I think the trailer sets you up that there's going to be like 6 rounds with a wolf at one point, and of course we don't get that, but
no, I mean, maybe that was the problem. I guess it's a shame if people went into it expecting that kind of thing and were disappointed. I guess the way that I went into it was, I think that Matt Stroll actually had sent me an email and said, you got to watch this movie, it's like The Edge was the thing that he compared it to. Which actually, I think it's a more interesting movie than The Edge, although The Edge I think is very interesting. Have you guys seen that?
No, I haven't seen it, but I know it's the Baldwin and
Hopkins. and Hopkins, surviving in the wilderness. It's a good comparison in the sense of like it's a similar kind of like.
Oh, and they're also in the Alaskan wilderness with a killer bear. A billionaire and a fashion photographer are stranded in the Alaskan wilderness with a killer bear on their trail.
Yeah.
I wonder if they are just as good at surviving or about the same as Liam Neeson in this movie.
You'll have to watch it, and I really recommend you do, because it is an excellent movie. But yeah, I mean, I guess that to me, if the emotional beats of this movie don't strike a chord with somebody, that'll make or break it. And it is a shame if that doesn't, if somebody doesn't feel that way about it. I mean, it's like, I guess I would, to get back to what we were saying before, actually, I think that depending on someone's relationship to masculinity, I can understand bifurcating reactions to the movie. It doesn't sound like that's the kind of reaction that you're talking about, but like for somebody who doesn't have the kind of relationship with masculinity that the characters in this movie have, and that I have, I mean, not that I'm like a tough guy like the guys from this movie. I'm a philosophy professor, but like, but But for somebody who doesn't have that relationship with masculinity, I can totally see the movie falling flat for that reason, because it's an emotional story that is about, and in many ways kind of like pitched at people like that, right? People who see life through a certain kind of gendered lens,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's also, I mean, I think to defend that aspect of the movie just slightly, I mean, I think there are, of course, many types of relationships people can have with death. This is exploring one from a particular masculine perspective. I
Yeah.
mean, of course, there's a reason why men would think of death from a survivalist perspective, you know, for evolutionary reasons.
I guess.
But there are, of course, that does not exclude other ways of engaging and forging a complex relationship with death that presumably other people, you know, from different lived experiences might have. And I don't think the film is excluding.
No, the
those.
film isn't negative
Yeah.
about any other outlook. It
Yeah.
just has its outlook, and it's like
It's
it's
exploring.
kind of it's just
yeah.
it's not even kind of gesturing at any other outlook. So that's the thing. Like I would not at all blame somebody for whom that outlook kind of fell flat.
Sure.
And also somebody who was, you know, like I think there are many people of faith who would enjoy this movie in exactly the way, or in something close to the way that I do, by kind of putting themselves inside it. But I also think there's probably a kind of person of faith for whom the movie could fall flat in a way. It's kind of naturally read as having, you know, but I think there are religious ways you could.
I think
you've spoken.
It's totally compatible with the religious outlook. I think what's kind of interesting is that from the perspective of actually just going through the world, there's very little difference. And the point, this point can be illustrated by the fact that one of the like sort of, I don't know how, fortune cookie wisdom sayings that you get by, you know, that many Christians will recite is God helps those who help themselves. So the thought being that, like, yeah, God's there and he's helping you as you're doing what you're doing, which of course is no different from the inside as just there's no God, you're just doing what you're doing. So I do think, anyway, but that is a way of thinking that even though God doesn't explicitly answer Otway in his call and so on.
Right, but his like, fuck it, I'll do it myself could be read as like God like giving him that second win.
By not responding, he gave him what he needed.
He gave him the courage to fight the wolf.
And the religious perspective is articulated in the film too.
For sure.
By various characters.
I mean,
it's not derided or like mocked that they have.
No,
I mean, like Diaz
is,
mocks them, but the movie doesn't mock
them.
I
think the movie seems to be pluralistic about how to approach this. I don't think it's judgmental in thinking like, well, Otway was the right way and Diaz was not, or something like that. I think it's sort of open to all of these.
I mean, I do think that Otway's articulation of his perspective, I felt was more eloquent than Dermot Mulroney Talgott's articulation of the more theistic perspective. I felt, and it felt a little bit, I don't know, it felt like you could tell where people's hearts were in a way, like, but I mean, but I think though that to me, the more religious part of the movie is the parallel that you talked about with the kind of like Otway being a shepherd and leading people into kind of enlightenment in a way. And I mean, this gets to the one thing I wanted to make sure that we talk about, that we haven't talked about yet is the first names scene where Diaz shares that his first name is John. Henrik says, "Well, I'm Pete," and then Otway surprises Diaz by saying that his first name is John, and it's just this kind of like I don't know. To me, like that was the most powerful scene in the movie. In my most recent rewatch of it, I thought it was a really special scene. You know, it's right there in the middle of Diaz kind of like accepting death, but it's also, I don't know, it's just like it's like that to me, that's the part that feels the closest to religious, the coincidence that they both have the same first name, and it's kind of a biblically important first name, and it kind of feels like No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's true. So yeah, that's right. There's kind of
Wait, are all the characters named from the Bible?
I don't know
Hold
that
on.
we have their first names.
Yeah,
no, we do. I have them on I have the names on Wikipedia because they're hard to keep track of because the characters
I
are
know,
so
I
like
know.
So
they
it's
blend
John
together.
Otway, Pete Talgett,
So
John Diaz. What's Henrik's first name?
so Henrik is Pete.
Is Pete.
At that point, it was just Henrik, Diaz, and Otway alive.
Oh, okay.
Talgett's first name is Jerome, so another
Okay.
saint.
Mm.
But then Flannery is Todd, Burke is Jackson,
Theodore.
Lewandin is Luke.
Luke.
Oh yeah, Theodore. Yeah,
Theodore
okay,
is
could be,
Theodore.
yeah.
Anyway.
I don't know. Yeah, Jackson doesn't seem,
Nah.
and Hernandez is Dwayne, which like those characters are pretty minor. But
That's interesting.
But it's,
and look at all this religious stuff we're finding in this movie.
it is true that like the three. So I think Otway, Diaz, Henrik, and Talgett are the four that the movie has. Especially Otway and Diaz.
Yeah.
And like those guys all have biblical names.
Yeah.
So.
That's really cool, though. I mean, I do like that idea of this. It's like almost like it's one of these mystical connections, and it comes also on the heels of Talgett articulating like there's a meaning, there's a reason for all this. There's some preordained thing, and then them kind of laughing about it, but then finding out by pure coincidence that they have the same name.
They're both Johns.
There is that kind of there is something sort of it's like whimsical, insignificant, but also seems to carry profound weight in that moment. Like
It's very significant, I think, because it just, again, it underscores this feeling that you feel like Otway was there to bring people, but especially Diaz, right? Like to bring him
needed
enlightenment and acceptance of death. And the thing that Diaz says, he said, of course that's your name, right? It's such I just love that. That's my favorite line in the movie. I think it's like, I think that line just hits amazingly in a script, by the way, that I think is very spare, but also really eloquent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of kind of simple but poetic lines in the movie, like the voiceovers from Neeson at the start, they work.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel corny. So
I'm sure if we talked another 2 hours, we'd find more stuff, but unfortunately we don't have another 2 hours.
No, thank you both.
Thank you so much
I appreciated this
for recommending this.
I know it feels good to have brought the movie.
You did. You brought it to us,
and I hadn't seen it before. Yeah,
I'm grateful. Yeah, I really.
That's like our favorite thing is when people bring us movies that we haven't seen and they're really passionate about it.
We bought the 4K.
Thank God.
So, which was great. The transfer looked
great.
Good.
That's a great Blu-ray.
Very, very good.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
So, Dave, I know you write fiction, as I mentioned at the top. I mean, do you want to recommend a story to our audience that they might check out if they're interested in hearing some of the fiction that you've written or reading some?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's been a while since I've written any fiction. It's been several years now. I kind of took some time off from it to focus on my philosophy book. So the piece that I actually published that is the most recently written and that I think is like and fits also with the theme of the podcast too, and that I think is like the most interesting, is in a book that Eric Schwitzgebel and the late Helen de Cruz co-edited, which is Philosophy Through Science Fiction Stories is the book, and the title of my story is The Intended. It takes place in the far future. It's about a guy who grew up on a planet where everybody's life is planned for them in a very benevolent way, and they don't know the plan, they just live it, but they kind of live life in the back of their mind with a guarantee that they'll meet someone who's the right person for them and that their life will turn out great. It's about a guy who had an accident and had to leave that society, and is kind of like, he comes back to meet the woman that he was supposed to be with.
Can people read this on your website, or do they need to buy the
book? Yeah, that's so it is only in the volume, but maybe I should I suspect that at this point it would be okay in terms of the contract for me to put it on my site. And
Don't
I
feel any
like I should
pressure to
that.
do so. So the name of the book in which the story which is called The Intended appears is Philosophy Through Science Fiction.
Philosophy Through Science Fiction Stories.
Yeah, science fiction stories. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by the story you mentioned because I thought you were going to say something like, okay, so in the quantum realm.
No. I do have some stuff about the quantum realm for sure.
Of course.
But speaking of the quantum realm, the other thing that I do want to plug that's more recently published is that there is a book of kind of semi-popular stuff called The Philosophy of Ted Chiang.
Oh, did you contribute to that?
I do have a piece in that. Yeah, David
cool.
Friedel is the editor.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Philosophy of Ted Chiang. Yeah. Author
Ted Chiang.
of The Story of Your Life, which became Arrival, which everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right, cool. Thanks so much, Dave. This was really fun.